Although Madagascar is an island African nation, it possesses a significant amount of Austronesian DNA, with its official language of Malagasy also originating from the area. Over time, it saw other groups of people immigrating to the island, starting with the peoples from mainland Africa, and eventually seeing Arabs, the Portuguese, and the French arriving on the island. It also saw pirates set up camp there, due to them getting tired of dealing with law enforcement found in the Caribbean. It also sees a fair amount of trade with East Asia in modern day, so it shouldn't be surprising to see things such as gaming having this international feel to it, as seen with the popular game played within the land. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Checkers. With this episode, we will be going over Fanorona. With Fanorona, it is a Madagascar variant of Alquerque that can trace its origins back to 1680, with it possibly being brought to the island nation by traders. Sometimes, more than just trade goods are able to be exchanged in the marketplace, with things such as ideas and games being exchanged as well, sometimes without a medium of exchange being used. Due to its popularity in its homeland, Fanorona is seen as the national game of Madagascar. There are also 3 versions of the game which are based upon board size, which will dictate its level of difficulty. The easy version of the game is known as Fanoron Telo, and it is played upon a 3x3 grid. The moderate version of the game is known as Fanoron Daimi, and it is played upon a 5x5 grid. And the hard version of the game is known as Fanoron Tsivi. It is played upon a 9x5 grid, and it is the most well-known version of the game. With the board used for Fanorona, it is very similar to that of the board used for Alquerque, where it consists of a series of grid lines. With these grid lines, they will vary based upon what version of the game is being played, but the basic setup is the same, where each point found upon the board are connected to each other through the use of orthogonal lines which include the edges of the board itself. With the squares that make up the board, 4 of them can be seen as constructing a larger square that we'll be referring to as a tile, with a number of these tiles varying upon the difficulty level. On top of this, the central point of each tile is connected diagonally to the corner points of said tile and vice versa. With Fanorona, it is a 2-player game where the objective is to capture and remove all of the opposing player's pieces from the board, or to leave them in a state where they can't perform a move. But if at any point that either player is unable to perform a move or engage in a capture, then the game is deemed to be a draw. Each player is to receive 22 pieces each, where each set consists of a single color, that of a dark-colored set and a light-colored set. With some game sets, they come with some extra pieces for each color. When setting up the board, it is to be placed in the middle of the play area where both players have easy access, with the long sides facing the players. With the placement of the pieces upon the board, each player is to place one of their pieces onto each of the 9 points found in the 2 rows that are found in front of them. With the center row, while keeping the center point of the row empty, the players are to place their pieces into the points of the center row in an alternating pattern, starting with the point found in the far right column. Going from right to left, this pattern is that of light and dark for the player who's playing as the light-colored pieces, with this pattern being that of dark and light for the player who's playing as the dark-colored pieces. When players take their turn, it is to alternate between them, with the player controlling the light-colored pieces going first. On their turn, the player is to choose just one of their pieces they wish to move, which is to be done along the lines that are found upon the board. When moved, since they're only allowed to move to an adjacent point, the piece is to be moved to a neighboring empty point. And regardless if the point is empty or occupied, a piece is never allowed to jump over an empty point. On the player's turn, they are to perform a move which simply sees a single piece move to an adjacent point found along any of the lines. With a move, it comes in one of 2 types, that of a non-capturing move, known as a pika, and a capturing move. With a pika, it sees the movement of a piece into an empty point found upon any of the board lines, and it can only occur if there are no possible capturing moves available for the piece to perform. When moving, it will have to be into a point found within a range of the board line, either straight or diagonally, with diagonal movement only being allowed along certain lines upon the board. With a capture, it sees one or more of the opposing pieces being removed from the board. And when a capture presents itself, the player has to perform it, including if multiple captures present themselves during the player's turn. For those who wish to add complexity to their game, some modifications can be added, as seen with the following restrictions being incorporated. First is that a player cannot move along a line that they already traversed when they are engaging in a multiple capture move. Second is that a player cannot return to a point that was previously occupied during the multiple capture move. And third is that a player cannot capture in the same direction as the previous capture move. With restrictions of 1 and 2, the players will need to pay attention to their moves since they will have to remember the paths of capture they engaged in as a means of not violating these restrictions. With all of that addressed, there are some variants available to the game. The first variant is that with the first time either player performs a capture, only a single capture is allowed to occur with their turn immediately ending once this particular move has been performed. The second variant is that after the first capture is performed, any further captures that are available in a turn are not compulsory. This allows the player to decide if they wish to continue capturing or if they wish to stop the capturing process. If a piece moves several times during the capturing process, the same piece will have to be used for each capture. With that said, they can't travel to the same point twice during this movement process. And with successful captures, no 2 capture moves are allowed to be done in the same direction. After each capturing move, the captured piece is to be removed from the board before the next jump is to be performed. Regarding the nature of capturing, they come in 2 types, approach and withdrawal. And if a player faces the situation where they can perform both a capture of approach and a capture of withdrawal, said player will have to decide which type of capture they wish to perform, for they can't do both. When engaging in a capture of approach, it occurs when a player moves one of their pieces along a board line into an empty adjacent point so that said piece is found next to an opponent's piece that is found in the direction of movement. Once this move has been completed, then the enemy piece, along with any enemy piece found along an unbroken straight line along the direction of movement, are captured and removed from the game. But if this line is interrupted by an empty space or one of the player's own pieces, then no more opponent pieces can be captured. When engaging in a capture of withdrawal, it occurs when a player's piece that is found adjacent to an opponent's piece is moved away from said piece to an empty point that is found along the same line that possesses the opponent's piece. When this occurs, then said piece is captured. On top of this, any opponent piece that is found along an unbroken straight line along the direction of opposite movement are captured and removed from the game. But if this line is interrupted by an empty space or one of the player's own pieces, then no more opponent pieces can be captured. The game comes to an end when one of the players has captured all of their opponent's pieces. But if neither player is able to achieve this, then the game is to end in a draw. In situations where multiple games are to be played, instead of playing for money, players play with the intent of avoiding vela, which is veil in Malagasy, which happens when a player loses the game. During the second game, a different set of rules is implemented, seeing the previous game's loser going first. On top of this rule set applies to the first part of the vela game, and it consists of the following. First, each move consists of moving a piece to an adjacent empty point. Second, with every move that is performed by the previous game's loser, only a single opposing piece is able to be taken. So even though the capture by approach or capture by withdrawal are still in effect, only a single opposing piece is taken, even if there is a string of other pieces found behind it. On top of this, only a single step per move is allowed to be done, and a pika move isn't allowed to be performed by the previous game's loser. And third, the previous game's winner is able to perform moves without engaging in a capture. This can consist of a pika or a single-step capturing move, but without taking any pieces off. In addition to this, each move that the previous game's winner performs, they will have to allow their opponent the capability to perform a capture. If they fail to do so, then they forfeit the game. These rules are to be used until the winner of the previous game is down to only 5 pieces left, which will cause the game to revert back to its normal rules. If the loser of the previous game manages to win, then it is said that they have eaten the vela, thus lifting the punishment, and the following game is to operate under standard play. Otherwise, the loser of the previous game will have to continue operating under these alternate rules until they finally win a game. When it comes to that of a championship match, it consists of 10 ordinary games plus any vela games that occur. At the start of the match, 2 ordinary games are played with each of the 5 possible opening moves. This is done so that each player has the chance to play as both the light-colored pieces and dark-colored pieces in each of the openings. And given the fact that there isn't a vela after a draw is to occur, it causes a variable number of games to be played in the given match. Finally, points are to be rewarded to the player who wins the game, regardless of if it's an ordinary or a vela game. So with that said, that is what you need to know about Fanorona. With that taken care of, we can start talking about Konane. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.